everybody, we're back with Off the Highway. I'm Tony Kriz, and that is Dr. Curt Thompson. He is the author of Anatomy of the Soul, one of the 5 best books I read last year. Anatomy of the Soul, surprising connections between neuroscience and spiritual practices that can transform your life and relationships. You can also find Dr. Curt Thompson, a psychiatrist and neuroscientist, at www.beingknown.com. Curt, here's my question for you today. Why does God hide from us?
Well, I think, Tony, the short answer to that is I have no idea. That's the short answer, and I think I'm being really truthful. But I think also that we have to use language as a way for us to talk about it. Language and imagery to talk about our experience. We have to use metaphor to talk about our experience with God. And when we have trouble accessing what we typically experience as our normal experience with God and God's intimacy and so forth, that's one way that we talk about it. And that would seem to make sense to me that we would use that metaphor, because we use all kinds of metaphors that are common to human beings to talk about our relationship with God. And so that's one way that we talk about it. But to me, it also presumes God's intent.
Right.
That, we have some sense that it's God's intent for him not to be found by us. I'm not so sure. Maybe that's the case, but I don't know a lot of really, really good parents who, unless they're playing a legitimate game of hide and seek with their kids, intentionally keep their kids from finding them when their kids really need them. But that doesn't mean at times that children don't feel as if their parents are withholding their presence or withholding their money or withholding their whatever when children feel like they really need it, despite the fact that parents clearly may have a different idea about that. I mean, you as a parent would know what that's all about when we make decisions not to take action on behalf of our kids that our kids would rather we take action on. And to me, that's kind of what that feels like. And every time that at least for me, when I find myself in this place, when my patients find themselves in this place, when, especially working with couples, when a husband or a wife finds the other in a place where they want them to find them at a time when it feels very difficult for them to do so, these do become moments where these become opportunities for growth. Now, I'm not saying, well, God does this for our growth, but I think it is true that these things do tend to coincide with those things, that developmentally we're constantly in situations in which we have to extend ourselves into places where we would say God is hiding, when in fact he may just be in a place and in a fashion or a manner that our vision, our sensory experience, our understanding, our depth, and so forth has to be grown into a deeper awareness of him. So that would be one way that I think about it. Yeah.
It is, the hide and seek metaphor is interesting, because the reason that hide and seek is so thrilling is because when one does find someone, it's the very fact that they were hidden for so long that makes the moment so much elation in that. And I wonder if there is sort of a parallel there in sort of God's relationship with us, again, not necessarily from an intentional standpoint, but from an experiential standpoint.
I think that would be an altogether plausible, that would make sense to me. We don't, I don't think we intentionally, good parents don't intentionally want to remain hidden from their kids. But it is true, I think, and even now speaking as a parent of adult children, who I increasingly want to have more and more of a peer relationship with. There is a sense in which there are times when things that they need from me also coincide with things that I probably want from them as well, things that I desire greater connection for them. I desire for them to grow into a greater level, greater degree of capacity for being able to understand where I am as their parent, even, or as I am in my own life. And that requires, in some instances, sometimes in many instances, requires my not doing all the work. They're going to have to do extra work to come to where I am, when they would much rather I do work on their behalf. This is one thing if it's just getting, feeding a child when we're tying their shoes when they can tie their shoes. It's altogether different when they're having to decide about a job, or when they're trying to discern whether or not faith that we've, thought that we've nurtured them in is now something they're questioning. All those things, I think, become ways in which they become opportunities for relationships to grow ever more deeply together.
Everybody, that is Dr. Curt Thompson. He is the author of Anatomy of the Soul. Please go check it out. Thank you, Curt. Appreciate your time.
Great to be with you, Tony.